Loving my cup? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've been in love with traveling ever since I can remember, and getting lost on purpose has always been one of my favorite things to do while traveling. There's an absolute magic to it. No plan, no map, none of those things. I would immerse myself in my new surroundings so that I can absorb the new culture that's presented itself to me. And in my travels, I found no better expression of culture than food itself. Food has the ability to tell stories, and there's no greater manifestation of storytelling in the world of cooking than that of street food. The most humbling of meals are often the tastiest ones, and they often have the most incredible stories behind them. This is why I want to devote a video series to the recipes behind some of the most incredible street food that we find across the globe, so that we can celebrate it together and help continue its story. Our journey begins right now with the great city of Rome. Widely referred to as the cousins of Varanchini, these humble rice croquettes are amongst some of Rome's most iconic street foods. Traditionally made up of rice cooked in tomato sauce and stuffed with mozzarella, these grand pleases are served over Italy's capital. Their name is actually derived from the French word for surprise, which refers to the mozzarella surprise awaiting you inside, and its resemblance to a telephone call when stretched. These are Rome's beloved Suppli al Telefono. If you've been lucky enough to visit Rome before, then you probably already know these mozzarella bursting rice croquettes, widely offered as an appetizer in pizza slice shops. By the way, that's my type of thinking. A deep fried risotto bowl stuffed with mozzarella, served as an appetizer before your pizza slice. That is absolute genius. It doesn't get better than that, surely. But without further ado, andiamo a mangiare, which actually means let's go eat, but we need to cook them first, so let's go cook. Our Roman Inquisition begins with a simple vegetable stock. We're roughly chopping 3 carrots, 3 celery sticks, 2 white onions, and 1 whole head of garlic. Nice trick, but let's try that again. Just as I thought. Go ahead and cut the head of garlic straight through the center. Add about 10 thyme sprigs to the stock mix and give everyone a spin for good measure. Transfer everything to a large pot and add about 2 liters of water. Set over high heat, bring to boil, and then reduce heat to low medium to establish a gentle simmer that we're going to maintain for about an hour and a half to extract all the goodness from our veg. Once the time is up, we're spilling everywhere through a fine sieve in efforts of both short-circuiting everyone's electricity and achieving a clear stock. All joking aside, don't spill any liquids on your appliances. That can cause serious damage. And with the safety caution out of the way, we're moving on to reducing our stock. The stock is actually okay as it is, but we can concentrate its flavor further by reducing it over medium heat to about 1 liter, which is the amount we'll need for our recipe. Set aside for a minute as we turn our attention towards finely slicing 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. Bash lightly, peel, slice your garlic cloves and set aside. Now cover the bottom of a deep pan with a thin layer of olive oil. Let your oil come to temp and add your slices of garlic, stirring frequently to infuse the oil for 1 or 2 minutes. We're next adding 250 grams or 1 1/4 cups of risotto rice, such as Arborio or Carnaroli, and we're toasting for 1 or 2 minutes over medium heat. At this stage, we're adding 200 grams or 1 cup of passata, and we're reducing while constantly stirring together with the rice. This will awaken the tomatoes from their cuppa slumber. When you can feel your passata has thickened and lost its moisture, it's time to start adding the stock we prepared earlier. Add a ladleful of stock to your rice and begin stirring over medium heat until the stock is completely absorbed. Then add another ladleful, repeat the process until your rice is cooked to al dente, or put in other words, until it has a hint of bite to it but is not completely inedible. And we're adding 40 grams or 3 tablespoons of finely grated parmesan reggiano and stirring to melt in. We're seasoning with salt and freshly ground black pepper, and lastly adding about a handful of finely sliced fresh basil leaves. What we've essentially just made is a basic but a very fine tomato risotto. Throw in a touch of butter and have it as it is. I wouldn't judge you. To continue on our suppli journey, we need to spread our risotto in a thin layer over a baking sheet. This will help it cool it down quicker and form a sturdy layer that is easy to shape later. When the risotto has cooled down slightly at room temp, go ahead and move it into the fridge for at least 2 hours. In the meantime, we're going to cube about 100 grams or half a cup of low moisture mozzarella. Remember, we're using it to stuff our suppli to achieve that nice cheese stretch. Closer to the 2-hour mark, we can also go ahead and prepare a neck wash for our suppli. Crack 3 eggs in a bowl, season with salt and pepper and whisk them well. When the rice is chilled sufficiently, we're taking it out of the fridge and we need to shape our rice croquettes. For set purposes, you want to scrape out a chunk of rice layer more or less equal to the size of your palm and shape the rice so that it has a slight indent in the middle and sloping sides. Take an appropriate amount of mozzarella cubes and rest them in the aforementioned indent. Scraping some more rice off your tray, go ahead and enclose your suppli. Pressing it between your palms, you want to give it its distinct elongated tubular shape. Rest on your tray and finish up with the rest in the same manner. No one said it was going to be super clean, but it certainly is plenty of fun in its own way. Just time for a leg wash. It helps to have one hand dry at all times for easier handling of the dry part, so if you can muster it, I would suggest you use one for the wet parts and keep one for the crumbs. We're starting with a good coating of fine breadcrumbs and transferring over to the egg bath to cover your egg completely. Then back to the crumbs again, and this is when your dry hand could come in handy. Finally, transfer onto the line tray and repeat for all your suppli. And it's time to cook. We're deep frying in preheated oil, registering 150 Celsius or 300 Fahrenheit for about 5 minutes or until golden brown on the outside. I like to flip everyone quite so often so they don't burn on the bottom, and also to ensure uneven browning. When you're happy with the results, go ahead and take your now fried suppli out on a piece of kitchen paper to drain off any excess fat. We're going to continue with the same steps until all our suppli have turned to a crunchy golden hue. Drum roll please. I present to you our Suppli al Telefono. And in this stage I can appropriately say, andiamo a mangiare. But first, let us marvel at this glorious cheese stretch. It hardly gets better than this. But let us examine closer. Texture-wise, we have a great contrast between a super crunchy and beautifully caramelized exterior and a newsy mozzarella-packed interior. The tomato sauce provides a good level of acidic balance while the whole is sinking beautifully, and you can really appreciate each layer of this humble yet extremely delicious Roman delight. But as you might guess by now, don't take my word for it, make your own.